Chapter 541. When he told her about the flower pot in the long corridor, Auber immediately remembered. "So it's you, this coward. What else can you do besides tattletale?" The little stoic's eyes abruptly flared up in anger, and she kicked Yu Yukong in the stomach, sending him tumbling out and crashing into Situ Yi's low table with a crash. Situ Yi hastily jumped up to dodge, only to see that unlucky guy pressing down on that table and tumbling to the ground with the table. Hu Yokong's entire body was pressed down by the overturned table, and his legs trembled outside the table. Family head Qin's mouth gaped open. Although he had heard the servants report the formidable aspects of the second young master's valiant maidservant, hearing was one thing, seeing it with his own eyes was another. You. Situ Yi pointed at our dear Chiao Mu and said with certainty, "You are little junior sister. Don't deny it. You. Come here right now. Quickly come here." Auber glanced at him and patted to him. Situ Yi pulled her to his side and raised his hand to rub her head. He was both speechless and earnest as he said, "Little junior sister, why are you so disobedient? Where did you run off to these past 2 years? Do you know that everyone was looking for you? How could you disappear just like that and suddenly play the act of completely disappearing? You really made everyone worried sick. Immobilize." Auber suddenly took out a talisman and slapped it on Situ Yi's forehead. That yellow talisman paper floated on the forehead of the handsome youth with dashing eyebrows and bright eyes. Everyone, Duan Yu was especially speechless as the corner of his mouth kept twitching. This child really didn't change at all. As long as she found it noisy, she would immediately use a strange method to make you quickly shut up. Situ Yi's brows twitched, and he reached out to remove the talisman floating on his face. He looked helplessly at the stoic face. "Little junior sister. Senior brother is saying this for your own good. Don't be impatient and don't be silent. Only by talking can we know what happened in the past 2 years. Senior brother Situ, your cultivation base has risen again." Auber sighed and looked regretfully at Situ Yi. Her cultivation had also soared once, but she still couldn't stop him. Prince Mo watched darling Chiao from afar. Although he didn't say anything, his grip on the wine glass tightened subconsciously. When the little fellow's relationship with Situ Yi was already this good? By calling him senior brother Situ, he was admitting his identity. When facing him, the little thing, who had been expressionless and trying its best to distance itself from him, had actually so readily acknowledged Situ Yi. The anger in Prince Mo's heart was surging, with nowhere to go. Duan Yu's expression was also unsightly as he stared at Situ Yi from head to toe. He didn't think this guy was better looking than him. The little stoic didn't even acknowledge him, so why did she acknowledge Situ Yi first? Why did he feel such a strong killing intent? Situ Yi was confused. "Come here." Prince Mo spoke. Situ Yi glanced in Prince Mo's direction and saw the Crown Prince's eyes brimming with a terrifying fury. His gaze was chillingly fixed on the hand that was stroking little junior sister's head. Situ Yi sheepishly withdrew his hand and elbowed the little stoic. "His Highness the Crown Prince is calling you over." "Your Highness." Young Sir Omega Kotoku suddenly stood up and quickly walked to Auber. He bowed at Prince Mo. "This one was lax in disciplining my maidservant. I am willing to bear all responsibility." Chapter 542. Monstrous fury surfaced in Prince Mo's eyes. Bang! The wine cup in his hand turned into fine powder and flew away with the wind. Bear responsibility? Where did this scoundrel come from? Pretending to be a protector, he actually wanted to bear all the responsibility for his baby? Then what about him? What did he, Emolien, count as? The Crown Prince was enraged. Qin Guilu's eyebrows twitched, and he suppressed some anxiety in his heart. That person said that as long as the Crown Prince arrived, he could immediately take action. Why was there no sign of him taking action yet? Judging from the Crown Prince's towering rage, he probably wouldn't be able to stay in the Qin estate for long. Come, hurry and change His Highness the Crown Prince's wine cup. Young Master Omega Kotoku calmly instructed, his cold gaze sweeping over his subordinates. Sensing that the atmosphere was completely off, his subordinates scrambled to get wine cups. No need for such trouble. Prince Mo abruptly stood up and walked down the steps, approaching Arbor. What to do? He seemed to be very, very angry. Our dear Chiao Mu was inexplicably flustered and vexed. She looked at her 2 little fingers in a daze, and her small head unconsciously drooped down. She had grown fat from eating her words in these 2 years. He had reason to be angry. She said that she would return to the capital to see him. At that time, he had smilingly agreed and said that he would wait for her. Moreover, the ferule he had given her had broken, and Big Treasure was dead. She couldn't even keep a single one of the gifts she had given him. She was truly too useless. She was a little jinx who would bring misfortune to anyone who approached her. She wasn't very suitable to be by his side. Come back with me. Seeing her silent and small figure huddled behind Omega Kotoku, the Crown Prince's heart twitched for no reason, and it tightened painfully. He reached out to grab her wrist. In the next instant, his hand was blocked by young Master Omega Kotoku. Your Highness, young Master Omega Kotoku emphasized, this is this humble one's maidservant. Your Highness, please conduct yourself with dignity. Who are you? How dare you speak without thinking in front of us? When did she become yours? She never was. A murderous intent flashed through Prince Mo's eyes. He immediately stretched out his hand and slapped the Omega Kotoku's head without thinking. Your Highness, please calm down. Please forgive my unfilial son for his rudeness, Your Highness. Qin Guelu shouted as his body trembled. When Mo Lien's palm smacked down, he sensed that it was somewhat obstructed by a rather powerful cyclone. This guy's defensive barrier was quite strong. Mo Lien's phoenix eyes contained a bit of killing intent as she coldly swept her gaze over Qin Xian's face. When their gazes met, monstrous waves surged in the depths of their eyes. Prince Mo immediately raised his guard and coldly glanced at the Omega Kotoku. When I first met darling Chiao, you were still nowhere to be found. Get out of my way. Mo Lien angrily shoved the Omega Kotoku before scooping up a certain dazed person and bringing her to her side. Let's go. Prince Mo angrily grabbed the little fellow's wrist and turned around to leave, dragging her along. His fingers were like an iron clamp around her wrist, so how could she struggle free? Our dear Chiao Mu blindly followed him to the entrance of the antechamber, where she saw a crowd of madams and young misses standing nearby and looking at each other from afar. Originally, the female guest lounge wasn't far away, so they all came out of the female guest lounge out of curiosity when they heard the commotion and saw this scene with their mouths agape. Mom, who is this B*TCH? Why is the crown prince grabbing her hand? Mu Qianqian's face paled as she glared at Arbor in disbelief. How could this be? The crown prince had never liked to interact with women, so why was he grabbing the B*TCH's hand so tightly and not letting go? Chapter 543. All the female guests were currently peeping at the crown prince's entourage and whispering to each other when they suddenly heard a blood-curdling scream. Help! Help! A young man's trembling voice approached from afar. Ow! A terrifying roar deafeningly traveled in from outside the reception pavilion for female guests, scaring all the madams and young misses into retreating to the sides. The reception pavilion's door was smashed to the ground with a boom. A young man in disheveled clothes rolled in and fell at the feet of a madam. He didn't care about anything else and wanted to hug the other madam's leg. Help! 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 That madam was so frightened by this impetuous little bastard that she continuously retreated, her eyes filled with rage from embarrassment. When Arbor heard this person's voice, her 2 small brows twitched slightly. Although this person was extremely frightened at this moment, she could still recognize from this voice that this person was the man who had secretly eaten with concubine Mei in the middle of the night. Ah, young master cousin! Some of the maidservants exclaimed. Only then did Arbor understand that this disheveled young man with a flat nose and a round face was Madame Qin Nei Yang's treasured nephew, Yong Jiazhen, who was stained with misdeeds. What was laughable was that he impatiently sought out his uncle's concubine to secretly eat and even kept his aunt in the dark. It was truly so disgusting that it made people want to vomit. Ow! Another half-naked woman with disheveled hair pounced in from the door. However, she couldn't be called a woman anymore. Her skin had already been replaced by pieces of black, rotting flesh. Her 4 limbs crawled on the ground at an extremely fast speed, and she entered the reception pavilion in the blink of an eye. Black vortexes flickered in her eyes, and her lifeless eyes stared fixedly at her target, Yang Jiajun. Grinding her sharp teeth, she opened her mouth slightly to reveal the signature product of a zombie, fangs. Oh my God! Why is it a zombie? The hall was filled with chaotic screams, and the ordinary madams and young misses were truly so shocked that they turned pale and screamed continuously. Don't be nervous, everyone, don't be nervous. Calm down and don't run around recklessly. Don't come into contact with this zombie. Qin Guelu was simply about to cry from anger. What the F***ck was going on? Why were there so many things happening at his 60th birthday banquet out of the blue? Who could stand up and tell him why there was a zombie in his house? Now that the entire Guanlon city was under martial law day and night, not to mention zombies, even a mosquito wouldn't be allowed into the city. If news of a corpse puppet appearing in the Qin estate were to leak out, it was unknown how many people would be concerned about it. Perhaps the entire Qin estate would be implicated. Could it be that this was the plan that the Lord had in mind? Letting a zombie in to wantonly attack Crown Prince Emo? Would it work? He didn't look reliable at all. Uncle, save me. Uncle, save me. Young Jiajun was only wearing half of his pants, and half of his foot was broken, as if he had been viciously bitten by a zombie. Young Jiajun was about to go crazy. He wailed bitterly, and his clothes were disheveled as he crawled toward Qin Guelu, causing the unmarried maidens to spit several times in embarrassment and cover their eyes with their hands. He's been bitten. A few of the young masters cried out in horror. Quick, isolate him, don't let him come over. Uncle, save me. Uncle, uncle. Aunt, where are you, Aunt? Ah, save me. Save me. Roar. That zombie suddenly attacked and pounced on Young Jiajun's back. Chapter 544. An inhumanly large hole opened in the zombie's enormous mouth, revealing 2 long fangs that abruptly pierced into Yang Jiajun's neck and kept biting. Yang Jiajun let out a series of wretched cries. Qin Guelu's pupils constricted several times, and he blocked his 2 sons beside him. Don't go over. Don't go over. Humph. You only have yourself to blame. Aber suddenly spoke coldly and mockingly glanced at young Master Yang Jiajun, who was lying on the ground and being bitten by the zombie. If she didn't guess wrongly, this zombie was the young lady from a good family that Yang Jiajun had abducted from the jewelry store. She was about to get married, but he bullied her and insisted on forcibly taking her for his own use. After this young lady died, she mutated into a zombie and turned around to seek revenge on him. Truly, karma was very unpleasant. Serves him right. He just deserved to die. Be careful, be careful. She's coming over. Everyone, concentrate your mystic energy and attack. Family head Qin roared angrily and was the first to release a burst of mystic energy, which bombarded the ground beneath the zombie's feet. That zombie's movements were abnormally swift, so fast that it slightly surprised everyone present. Little junior sister, how is this zombie so fast? Situ-Yi felt that his little junior sister truly had talent in dealing with zombies. He asked without hesitation, completely not noticing the Crown Prince's serene gaze. This is a level 4 zombie and already has some intelligence. Look, she can even seek revenge on her enemies. Aber reflexively answered Situ-Yi's question. Level 4 zombies move faster than normal people. If they bite a level 5 mystic cultivator, they can obtain a portion of their energy and reach the level of a level 3 mystic cultivator at least. What? Everyone turned pale with fright when they heard this. They completely didn't expect that zombies could obtain energy from mystic cultivators. Was this freaking zombie trying to defy the heavens? Don't get bitten by it. Otherwise, the incubation period after infection would not exceed 5 days, and the body would mutate. Even immortals can't save you, Auber said indifferently, but everyone shuddered. Uncle, 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 save me. Young Jiazhen, who had a bloody hole in his neck and was struggling to crawl forward with one hand covering the wound, cried bitterly and reached out a bloody hand. Qin Guilu clenched his fists. Suddenly, a surge of mystic energy exploded from his entire body, instantly shattering Yang Jiazhen, who had crawled to his side, into a pile of minced meat. Family head Qin is so bold. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They were afraid that Qin Guilu would lose his mind and insist on keeping that scourge Yang Jiazhen alive. Everyone concentrated their firepower on the 4th-grade zombie. The female corpse puppet moved very quickly. She lay on the ground and jumped up from time to time, causing the madams and young ladies to scream in fright. Fortunately, these useless women were protected by guards. Seeing that there were so many people, the zombies did not pounce on them. This undead hag already had some intelligence. Instead, she fled towards the window. Don't let her escape. Kill her. Qin Guilu's entire body was drenched in cold sweat. He chased after her from the side with several great mystic cultivators. Several streaks of mystic energy crisscrossed and landed on the zombie's back, and the half-hanging corpse immediately fell from the window. Qin Xian raised his sword and chopped off the zombie's head on the spot. It rolled to the feet of a madam, immediately scaring that delicate madam into fainting. Abba sniffed and suddenly smelled a strange fragrance in the air. His heart abruptly skipped a beat. Hurry and leave, the hall is about to collapse. Chapter 545. Emolien's expression changed slightly, and she grabbed the little girl's waist before swiftly dashing out of the hall. The little girl suddenly stuffed a pill into Emolien's mouth. Emolien was startled for a moment before swallowing it without any hesitation. As soon as they ran out of the antechamber, they heard a loud boom. Sure enough, the entire room collapsed in a matter of seconds, causing dust and rubble to tumble down. Your Highness! Huifeng hastily chased after them. Emolien pulled the little girl's hand back several steps before letting go slightly. She raised her sleeve and waved the flying dust in front of her as she coughed softly. The hall in front of them suddenly collapsed, burying everyone in it in an instant. That idiot Emo Jiao also didn't come out. This was really fun. Let's return to the palace first. Emolien no longer had the patience to stay in this foul Qin estate, so she reached out to grab the little fellow's soft little hand. Unfortunately, she caught nothing. When she turned around to look, there was no trace of the little fellow. The little fellow must have used that invisibility talisman to escape while he wasn't paying attention. Huifeng glanced around and saw wailing women and young ladies being helped out one after another, each of them looking miserable with their heads covered in dirt and blood. Huifeng turned again and saw the rage that His Highness the Crown Prince was forcefully suppressing in his eyes. He silently lowered his eyes and inwardly grumbled bitterly. Couldn't this little great aunt go along with their lord a little? What the hell was she trying to do? Why did she disappear all of a sudden? Let's see where you can run to. Emolien clenched her fists as she turned around and strode away. Huifeng quickly followed without a word. At this time, he didn't want to casually open his mouth and become cannon fodder for no reason. Auber had used an invisibility talisman to escape. Firstly, she didn't know what kind of mood to face that terrifying guy right now. Secondly, there was something wrong with that fragrance, so she had to go over and take a closer look. The Crown Prince wouldn't want to beat her again, right? She was already an adult. If that guy dared to hit her again, she wouldn't let him off. There was a pair of small wings flapping in front of him. The black butterfly was fleeing very quickly, flying high and low in the air. Auber's speed wasn't slow either, but it kept a certain distance from him. The butterfly left the Qin estate and flew out of the bustling streets. It fluttered into a desolate road and flew into a dilapidated courtyard. Well done. Tomorrow morning, he will definitely be poisoned without anyone knowing. Hey! A wretched laughter sounded in the small courtyard. Really? Are you that confident? A cold female voice suddenly broke the silence in the courtyard. That person suddenly turned his head, his large and small eyes widened in shock as he stared blankly at the little girl who had just stepped into the courtyard. Arber's cold gaze fell on him. This person was a dwarf and was extremely short. She had never seen him before. He had a triangular head and an extremely ugly appearance. The main thing was that his eyes were big and small, and his eyebrows were one high and one low. His entire face looked extremely unbalanced, and it stung her eyes. "Stinky girl, there's a path to heaven but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell but you insist on barging in. Since you've come, then stay here." The dwarf's expression was sinister as he abruptly stretched out his hand. Countless black-winged butterflies flew out of his sleeves and swarmed toward Arber in unison. "You dare to show off your insignificant skills in front of me?" Arber sneered and waved her sleeves, sending out a wave of medicinal powder. The group of black butterflies in the air desperately flapped their wings and fell down together. Chapter 546. You're actually a poison master? The dwarves cried out in alarm and abruptly opened their palms, releasing a black smoke in front of Arber. "You dare to harm people with your level of poison?" Arber coldly shouted and abruptly dodged the poisonous smoke. The dwarf's eyes contained a poisonous glint, and he cackled strangely. "Little miss, you're still too inexperienced. Do you think that you can dodge my poisonous smoke as you please? From the moment I release the poisonous smoke, the sky above this area has already been permeated with poisonous smoke. Ha ha ha." Halfway through his words, the dwarf suddenly clutched his chest and widened his eyes in horror. He abruptly rolled on the ground and started to convulse. A layer of frost swiftly covered his face and limbs, and even his eyebrows were frozen. His lips kept trembling, and he couldn't speak due to the terror in his eyes. "You're about to die," Arber icily said as she brandished a shiny dagger. "Guess how many bloody holes I'll poke in your body before you identify the mastermind?" The dwarf's originally hideous face was now completely distorted. He glared angrily at Arber, and his teeth chattered as they made gurgling sounds. "Are you very curious as to why you were poisoned?" Arber lightly tapped the dwarf's face twice with the dagger in her hand, and her lips curled into an icy arc. "You can go to King of Hell's palace and ask for a clear answer. Speak, which stinking ditch is Shuntian Prefecture's Luigi hiding in?" "Ah." The dwarf hesitated for a second before two bloody holes appeared on his body. His entire body convulsed as he looked on helplessly as this she-devil carried him into the rear courtyard as though she was carrying a bag of trash. On a row of walls in the backyard, countless thin cocoons were hanging. They were shivering softly in the wind. "It seems that the poison-tailed butterflies you nurtured are already quite effective. What do you say if I feed you to them?" Arber icily spoke without the slightest warmth in her eyes. "And no, I'll speak. The dwarf's eyes revealed terror, and his lips trembled as he said, The one who's been in contact with me is Sir Cho-san. I only know that he's currently hiding inside Balon City's Balon fortification. It wasn't far from the capital. As for the exact address, I really don't know." "Cho-san." Arber recalled the familiar voice that had been plotting with Qin Guelu that night, and an idea occurred to him. "It's Luigi's lackey?" Yes. The dwarf said with a trembling voice, "Lord Cho-san is very angry. They said that Northern Prince Mo has caused the people of Shuntian Prefecture to be unable to survive these past few years. We must retaliate. In that case, Qin Guelu has indeed colluded with your Shuntian Prefecture." Arber's eyes were instantly dyed with traces of frost and snow. "Qin Guelu is very, very careful. He and Shuntian Manor have never exchanged any letters. If young Miss wants to accuse him of colluding with Shuntian Manor to murder His Highness the Crown Prince, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. Qin Guelu murdered the heir apparent of a kingdom for merely a few pill recipes," Arber said coldly as he pulled the dagger out of the dwarf's body. "The Qin estate has already reached its end." Slap! The dagger was flung out and shot at the wall. Immediately, the cocoon on the wall exploded with a bang. A swarm of black poison-tailed butterflies flew out and gathered into a thick mass, neatly wrapping around the dwarf. The dwarf howled in pain among the poison-tailed butterflies. "Why? I already said it. Ah. I don't think I said it before. If you confess honestly, I'll spare your life." Auber replied with an indifferent expression. When he turned around, his gaze landed coldly on the black figure that swooped down from the sky. Less than an hour later, Auber successfully returned to the Chin estate. She secretly snuck into Chin Guelu's study and found nothing, as expected. Chin Guelu, this old fox, had already erased everything that he had done. She returned to her room and lay down with her clothes on. She seemed to vaguely see Omega Kotoka's figure swaying outside. He raised his hand to knock on the door, but seeing that she had already turned off the lights, he seemed to give up. The little fellow was a bit frightened after being tormented for the entire day, and she fell into a deep sleep as soon as her head hit the pillow. Chapter 547. She slept very well that night. Unlike usual, she wasn't woken up by the slightest noise. Auber opened her eyes and felt refreshed. Her breathing was long. But she blinked and rolled over, wrapped in a thick brocade quilt. She stared dumbfoundedly at the thick, bright yellow muslin that fell from above her head. This large bed made of agarwood that was several feet wide was clearly not the one she had in the Chin estate. She raised her hand to touch it. The bright yellow canopy was woven with gold silk and inlaid with jade beads. 2 translucent white jade pendants swayed gently. And this brocade quilt of hers? The little fellow stretched out her small hand from the quilt with a dumbfounded expression. She checked her surroundings and sat upright with the quilt wrapped around her. What was going on? The dazzling candlesticks were set up every 5 steps, and the red candles were brightly lit. Rows of fist-sized luminous pearls hung from the 4 corners. The inner walls of the room were carved with white jade. At a glance, the inside and outside of the room were bright and clear. It was so spacious that it made one dumbfounded. This? How was this a side room? Wasn't this a luxurious palace? What was going on? Why did the Chin estate side room change into an unfamiliar bedroom after waking up? Was there anyone who could tell her what was going on? Auber hopped off the bed barefoot and ran a few steps. She lifted the heavy bead curtains and looked back. After running all the way, she had only just run out of the vicinity of the bed. Is there anyone here? Auber threw the brocade quilt on the ground and ran to the treasure pavilion to rummage through her clothes in a short-sleeved inner garment. Xiao Yao led a row of palace maids in. When she came in with neatly arranged clothes, she was stunned to find her little master rummaging through something in front of the treasure pavilion. Our dear Chiao Mu turned her head and saw Xiao Yao. Her eyes lit up, and she coughed awkwardly. I am looking for clothes. Pfft. Xiao Yao couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her little master was rummaging through clothes in the treasure pavilion. Master, you're finally back. Xiao Yao was already a big girl. She hadn't seen Auber for many years. She was a little emotional when she saw it again. Xiao Yao. The little fellow played with his 2 small hands and ran forward. He wanted to take the clothes, but the palace maid who was holding the clothes stepped aside and bowed in fear. Master, which one do you want to wear? Xiao Yao bent down to help her put on her shoes first, and then pulled her to sit down and dress up. If you don't like anything, Xiao Yao will ask someone to prepare it. Auber glanced over and saw dozens of girls holding clothes in their hands. She was dazzled. Whatever. Since when was she so particular? He casually pointed at the first girl. That can't be done casually. If Master is unhappy, His Highness will be angry. Xiao Yao smiled as she combed Ji Yunshu's messy black hair. She knew that her little mistress didn't care for a head full of jewels and jades, so she only took 2 light and delicate beads to decorate her hair. Auber reached out and touched a small face that was so ordinary that it couldn't be found in a pile of embarrassing people. This is the Eastern Palace? Waking up in the palace, even a fool would know what happened in the middle of the night. The little fellow secretly ground her teeth. No wonder she slept so well. The crown prince must have drugged her again and secretly carried her back to the palace. Bastard! Where's that bastard? This baby wasn't happy. Xiao Yao put down the comb, and her small hands stiffened. She coughed lightly and said, His Highness has to meet with officials in the South Study at this time. He'll be back a little later. Humph. I also have things to do. Qiao Mu casually picked up a robe that a palace maid was holding and put it on. She was about to walk out of the bedroom. Unfortunately, before she could take 2 steps, she was pushed back by a strong force. Her small mouth gaped open, and the little fellow reached out to hold her head in shock. Arbor focused her eyes and saw that the entire bedroom was surrounded by an abnormal airflow. It was like a soft and transparent cover, wrapping her inside. Xiao Yao covered her mouth and snickered. Little master, don't bother. You won't be able to leave. His Highness was worried that you would secretly run away again, so he temporarily placed a restriction on your body. Don't worry, it'll be fine as long as His Highness is back. Arbor. I'm worried. It's over. I'm going to sleep early today. I only slept for 4 hours yesterday. Life is hard. Chapter 548. It would have been fine if Xiao Yao didn't mention it, but now that she did, Arbor's pitiful little heart became unsettled and uneasy. Arbor reached out to pull Xiao Yao over. This young lady was now a tall and voluptuous young lady of 17 or 18 years old. She had a rosy goose-egg face and a pair of smiling eyes that were very lively. Little master, if you have any instructions, feel free to tell Xiao Yao, Xiao Yao said with a chuckle. Xiao Yao, can't I go out for a walk? It was rare for the sky to clear up, and it was her first time returning to the palace, so why couldn't she go out for a stroll? Xiao Yao shook her head like a rattledrum. That won't do, little master. You also saw it. His Highness set up layers of energy to surround the bedchamber. His Highness didn't give you the right to pass through, so you can't go out. This is a defensive barrier, right? Don't think that she didn't know what this thing was. Our dear Qiao Mu secretly ground her sharp teeth. She had seen Fan Qiuhe use this kind of large-scale defensive barrier in the past. It could instantly envelop several people or even more than a dozen people inside and resist external impacts. The defensive barrier's effect was comparable to that of a defensive mystic artifact. The difference was that the defensive barrier created by a defensive mystic artifact only had a defensive effect at best. But a defensive barrier created by a person was different. Being inside someone else's defensive barrier meant that your every move and every frown and smile would be in the eyes of the person who set up the barrier. As long as he wanted to, he could constantly pay attention to your every move. Of course, a person's defensive barrier couldn't be maintained for a long time. Ordinary little mystic cultivators couldn't create a defensive barrier at all. After all, how long it could be maintained and how strong its defensive power was closely related to the person's cultivation. If the mystic energy was exhausted, the defensive barrier would naturally disappear. However, the Crown Prince's actions left her speechless. He set up a defensive barrier for no reason, just to confine her from leaving. He didn't forget to set up a defensive barrier when he was discussing politics with someone in the Southern Study to constantly observe her movements. Didn't this consume his mystic energy? In addition, the defensive barrier that he had set up was extremely large. It had already enveloped an entire sleeping chamber. In that case, it would consume even more energy. Only he did not know. Where had his cultivation reached? This kind of behavior of casually opening a large-scale defensive barrier was so willful that it made one's hair stand on end. Xiao Yao awkwardly laughed twice. She also felt that His Highness was too nervous. Little Master was already in the Eastern Palace. Where else could he run to? Entering and exiting the palace required an identity token. If he didn't give her the token, how could the little master leave? There were tens of thousands of imperial guards patrolling the inner palace. They were not just for show. The chances of the young master sneaking out of the palace were too small. If Arbor knew what Xiao Yao was thinking, he would definitely snort at her. If I use an invisibility talisman, they won't be able to see me even if I sneak up to them. Not everyone's cultivation is higher than this baby's. As long as she was careful and avoided those with top-notch cultivation, how could ordinary guards stop her? Just as the two were talking, Xiao 11Z walked in with a group of people carrying large chests. Abba widened his eyes and stared straight at Xiao 11Z and company. Xiao 11Z and company hastily went forward to salute and said respectfully, "Miss, His Highness said that if Miss feels bored, you can read these medical books to relieve your boredom." Chapter 549. A quarter of an hour ago. The old physician in charge of the Imperial Physician Building was sprawled on top of an official box. Both his hands were tightly hugging the box that was under his body. Tears and snot were streaming down his face as he said, "No, no. You can't take these books away. You can't take a single book away. Imperial Physician Chow, I'm just borrowing them for a few days. I'll return them to you later." Xiao 11Z directed the people to move the boxes out. "No. Many of these medical books are hand-copied and limited edition books. There's only one of them, so I won't lend them to you. I can't lend them to you. If they're damaged, who am I going to ask for them?" Imperial Physician Chow held Xiao 11Z's leg tightly. "Return them to me, return them to me." Xiao 11Z's mouth twitched as he pulled his leg away, shouting, "Stop, stop! Imperial Physician Chow, where are your manners? This eunuch is under His Highness' orders to borrow your medical books to read for 2 days. I'll return them in a few days. You old fellow, stop making a fuss." Seeing the boxes being carried away before his eyes, Imperial Physician Chow's eyes rolled back, and he was about to faint after taking a deep breath. The nearby Imperial physicians quickly rushed over and patted the old physician's chest to soothe his breathing. "Old Imperial Physician Chow, old Imperial Physician Chow." Xiao 11Z hurriedly waved at the group of people, and they ran away with the boxes, leaving the Imperial Physician Building in a sorry state. They left behind a group of hopping physicians who were shouting furiously. Imperial Physician Chow's tears streamed down. "Help me change my clothes, woo-woo. I'm going to lodge a complaint." At this moment, the little girl looked at the dozen or so boxes of books, then raised her head to look in a certain direction in the bedchamber and snorted. The Crown Prince must be secretly observing her. Otherwise, why could the palace maids and eunuchs enter and leave freely, but she couldn't? She stuck out a little finger and poked lightly. A ripple of energy appeared at the bedchamber's door, sucking her finger in and slowly flicking it away. "Umph. Bad person." Inside the South Study Room, the group of officials quietly raised their heads and secretly glanced at His Highness. They discovered that the corners of His Highness's lips were slightly raised, and there was actually a hint of a smile in his eyes. This was something that was rarely seen in a few years. The official who had just reported a piece of bad news and was waiting for His Highness to scold him was dumbfounded. His Highness the Crown Prince didn't get angry. Instead, he calmly gave a few pointers and asked if there was anything else, then had them all withdraw. A few officials who were used to being scolded by His Highness, after coming out of the South Study, expressed that they were not used to it and were unable to accept it. Chapter 550. Emo Lien closed the document in her hand and stood up to walk outside. Xiao 11Z wasn't present, so another young eunuch quickly followed behind the Crown Prince. "Young aunt." The Crown Prince's footsteps paused, and he tossed him a piece of paper. "Order the meal to be served according to the menu." The Crown Prince was suddenly being particular. Young Lu Zi was a bit confused, and he followed with small steps. "Your Highness, order the meal to be served in the bedchamber?" Emolien responded and waved his hand to have him leave. Then, he strode quickly towards his bedchamber. A moment later, she arrived at the entrance of the bedchamber. She waved her hand to dismiss the palace maids who were waiting to salute, then quietly walked inside. The little fellow was hugging a small jar of dried fruit and sitting on the brocade couch by the window. There was a thick medical book on her knees, and she would occasionally flip through a few pages. Xiao Yao, who was quietly standing to the side, raised her head to see him enter. She hurriedly wanted to salute him. Emolienne reached out to stop her, and with an indifferent glance, Xiao Yao quietly bowed and left the bedchamber, leaving the large space for the two masters. Abba was engrossed in reading, and her small hand unconsciously picked up a piece of dried fruit and nibbled on it. The vast amount of medical knowledge in her mind overlapped with that in the book. She discovered that many of the medicinal herbs in the book only had different names from the ones in her mind, but their usage were more or less the same. In fact, the things that appeared in her mind from time to time were much more accurate and effective. She had definitely accumulated a large amount of medical knowledge in the past, so there was basically no need to doubt this. After her death in her previous life, until her rebirth, during this period of time, what exactly happened? Was it during this period of time that she learned medical skills from Master? A thought flashed through her mind, and she suddenly sensed a familiar aura approaching. The little fellow abruptly raised her head, and the thick book in her hand had already been taken away by someone. The Crown Prince was dressed in formal attire, and his long hair was tied up with a crown. He looked a bit different from his usual plain clothes, and there was a hint of sharpness between his exquisite brows. "What are you doing?" Darling Chow would get angry whenever she saw him. He had locked her in the room without saying a word, and now that he was back, he was provoking her and snatching her book without any explanation. Emolienne threw the book to the ground and reached out to lift her up from behind. He whispered in her ear, "Don't you have anything to say to me?" Just as the little fellow stretched out his hand, it was firmly held by him. His entire body was wrapped up by his tyrannical aura, and he couldn't move at all. His little face immediately became a little angry. "In the past 2 years, did you miss me?" His head gently pressed against her slender neck, and he slowly nudged her. Xiao Mu's intuition told her that this fellow was angry, and her entire body stiffened. "Do you want to?" How could he not? When she thought about how his faint, smoke-like figure on the snowy peak had blocked the attack for her and disappeared with a bang, she felt extremely uncomfortable in her heart. She unconsciously bit her pink lips. "Forget it, I don't want to know." He whispered into her ear and tightened his arms around her waist, pulling her firmly into his embrace. "Amo. Amen. Let's eat first. Are you hungry?" He suddenly hugged her and stood up, calling for someone to bring in the food as if there was no one else present. A dozen dishes for 2 people was already extremely extravagant in today's world. Although his expression was as gentle as jade, his actions were elegant, and he attentively picked up food for her to eat. But Abba felt uncomfortable in his heart. Chapter 551. This person was clearly suppressing a bellyful of anger, but he didn't say anything. It was so annoying to look at. "Just say what you have to say." Abba tossed her chopsticks and said angrily, "I'm not eating anymore." The 2 royal maids who were accompanying them abruptly glared. They had never seen anyone who dared to be so impudent in front of the Crown Prince. "Rest if you're not eating." Emolienne stood up and silently tossed his chopsticks aside. He reached out to grab her small hand. The little stoic was instantly enraged. She wanted to fling his hand away but failed. Her eyes were brimming with anger. "You're ridiculous." Crown Prince Mo gazed at her silently. The more he was like this, the angrier the little stoic became. She turned around and ran out of the bedchamber. Emolienne's figure flashed, and he instantly blocked her path. The little fellow ran without thinking and bumped into his arms. "Where are you going? You still want to return to the Qin estate? Are you that reluctant to part with that Omega Kotoku?" Emolienne instantly flew into a rage. He hugged her and turned her small face to face him. Why did he mention Omega Kotoku for no reason? Abba struggled with her small arms and legs, but how could she break free? She angrily punched him. "I'm telling you, the Qin estate has already been surrounded. The houses collapsed and so many officials' families were injured. A dangerous level 4 zombie also appeared in the estate. Right now, all of them are under observation. Not a single one can come out." The Crown Prince grabbed her small chin and stared straight into her black and bright eyes. He roared angrily, We encountered an assassin in their Qin estate, and Mo Jiao's head was also smashed open. Attacking the royal family is unforgivable. We must confiscate their Qin family. Fine, we'll confiscate it. Why are you yelling at me? Our dear Qiao Mu was extremely angry and kicked him. His Highness was used to this signature kick, so he didn't mind it at all. However, the surrounding royal maids and eunuchs were all scared witless, and they lowered their heads and prostrated themselves on the ground. You're not worried? Emolien's expression eased slightly. What do I have to worry about? You speak eccentrically all day long. If you're angry, just let it out. Don't hold it in. Arbor angrily kicked him a few times, leaving a row of small footprints on his robe. Emolien was instantly angered to the point of laughter. Carrying the little thing in her arms, she parted the curtains and walked into the inner room. She coldly said, "All of you leave." "Shouldn't I be angry?" He threw her onto the soft brocade on the side of the bed and leaned in close, his breath completely enveloping her. "You didn't leave a single word behind and ran away for more than 2 years without saying a word. When we met again, you were already in the Qin estate. That damned Omega Kotoku. Was he even worthy of being her protector?" I. Arbor immediately withered. The little fellow knew that she was in the wrong, but she still couldn't help but say, "Then don't blame me." Emolien laughed angrily. "How am I weird? You're obviously so angry that you can't wait to beat me up, but you still look like you're bathing in the spring breeze. Isn't it uncomfortable to hold it in? Oh, so you're saying that even if I don't hit you, you'll still remember. All right then, let's fight." He suddenly reached out and pressed her down on his long legs. Darling Qiao was immediately stupefied. "What? This immoral ghost, is there anyone who cheats people like you?" Seeing his palm fall, Arbor was about to die from anger. Why was she so stupid? Wasn't she asking for a beating? However, in the next second, he flipped her over and hugged her, his warm fingers gently caressing her small face. How could he bear to hit his darling? Chapter 552. You'll be of marriageable age in 3 months, right? He changed the topic too quickly. Darling Qiao couldn't keep up with his pace. Qiao Mu gave a muffled "MHM." Her small face was still puffed up with anger as he held her in his arms. "Actually, I'm not angry at you." Emolien lifted her face and nuzzled her forehead. "I'm angry at myself. I couldn't protect you properly. You don't know how much pain and self-reproach I felt when I saw those withered vines and broken trees on the snowy peak." He murmured in her ear. "But all of that is in the past now. I don't want to know anything or think about anything. I just want you to stay by my side. From this moment on, don't leave me again." Arbor actually didn't want to argue with him, but for some reason, she felt a bit angry when she saw his gentle mask earlier. Now that the two of them had a heated argument, this little fella felt more at ease. When she heard him say that, her boundless guilt was aroused, and she timidly looked at him and said, "Sorry." Speaking of which, she was willful in front of him and was used to acting coquettishly. She really couldn't bear the slightest bit of grievance from him. However, his lukewarm attitude just now made her feel aggrieved and gloomy. Arbor's eyes reddened, and she reflexively wrapped her arms around his neck. She pitifully said, "Emolien, I didn't disappear on purpose. It was just that I felt too bad at that time, so I didn't want to think about anything. Murong Sun is dead, Emolien. She originally said she would attend my marriageable age ceremony, but she died. She's a big liar." Emolien gently patted her back. When he thought of how helpless she was at that time, his heart couldn't help but ache. Sect Master is dead, Aunt Master is also dead. The ferrule you gave me broke, and Big Treasure is also dead. They're all dead, and I'm the only one left. Nonsense. How could you be the only one? No matter what, I will always be by your side. Do you understand? Jojo, you have to trust me more, okay? Arbor couldn't help but nod when he saw his focused and expectant eyes. Emolien's lips turned up as he stroked her small head in satisfaction. You don't know this, but when I brought your parents to the capital, I didn't even dare to say anything to them. You only lied to them that you were cultivating in the holy water sect. Do you know how much they missed you? But I only know how to harm others. Nonsense. Emolien suddenly reached out to cover her small mouth. How can the holy water sex incident be blamed on you? That's because people's hearts aren't what they used to be. Greed causes mischief. It's not your fault. Don't worry. No matter what, we'll get our revenge. Emolien hugged her and gently shook her little body. Promise me, baby, don't let your imagination run wild, okay? I'll send you home tomorrow. Are you okay? He cupped her little face and looked at her. Your parents and family all miss you very much. How could anyone reject such an offer? Arbor nodded gloomily. While you're at it, have royal father issue a betrothal edict and send it to your home as well. Prince Emo hugged this baby and approached her with a grin. Okay. His gentle and persuasive tone and his picturesque features made a certain little person nod gloomily. She didn't have time to think about it carefully. Then she abruptly widened her eyes. Betrothal? Who? Emolien held back his laughter and tapped her little nose before pointing at himself. You and me. Chapter 553. The little stoic's expression abruptly became exuberant. Her small mouth gaped slightly, and she was momentarily stunned. You can't go back on your word. You nodded yourself just now, and you even nodded 3 times in a row. I counted. Emolien's eyes darkened slightly, and his lustrous fingers touched her soft lips. He really wanted to kiss her. A turbulent thought surfaced in his heart, but he forcefully suppressed it. Darling is still young, don't scare her first. It wouldn't be good if he scared her away again. Look. No matter what, we've been together for 7 to 8 years, so we should at least confirm each other's status, right? Prince Emo said as he swayed her small body. Don't be scared, darling. We're just confirming our status. Nothing else. He couldn't resist lowering his head and kissing her dazed little face. Soft and sticky, the texture was really good. When you weren't here, I would be filial to my in-laws every 2 to 3 days. They especially like me. Emolien suppressed her laughter and said seriously, Don't worry, your in-laws definitely won't object to this. Stop. Arbor felt that she increasingly couldn't keep up with the Crown Prince's train of thought. Didn't you say before that we were friends? That we were friends? The words were still ringing in her ears. But didn't you say you didn't have any friends? Emolien looked at her seriously and said solemnly, I thought about it. If we don't have any friends, then so be it. We won't be friends anymore. The title of husband and wife is good, what do you think? What else can I say? You're about to betroth me. Don't be fooled by how he kept asking if it was good. In reality, he had already made up his mind. A certain darling was dumbfounded and couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. Emolien was laughing uncontrollably on the inside, but she still maintained a serious expression. She reached out to lift the little girl's chin and stroked it. Darling, my suggestion is very good, right? Let's do it like this. Tomorrow, we'll pass down this betrothal decree while we're at it. Okay. Why did she keep feeling like something was off? Arbor blinked and wanted to say something. Prince Emo continued, Don't worry, it's just a matter of settling the marriage before your hairpin ceremony, nothing else will be affected. Look at you, you're already so old. Men should get married when they're of age. Don't be afraid of getting married. Be good. But, is it that simple to issue an edict? Arbor asked blankly. Emolien smiled and lowered his head. While she was in a daze, he kissed her again. Don't worry, baby. I can handle it. If his father dared to stop him from marrying a wife, that night, Emolien went to the imperial study and talked with the great king for more than 2 hours before leaving with the imperial edict. This matter immediately caused the princes and concubines who heard the news to be unable to sit still. They all sent people out to find out what the crown prince and the great king had discussed in secret in the study. Unfortunately, the news was tightly sealed, and no one was able to find anything. After the crown prince went to the imperial study to ask for the imperial edict, Auber walked around the bedchamber without stopping for a moment. He felt that he had been tricked by someone. What did he mean by it was just a simple title and nothing else? Wasn't it just a title given by the country's heir apparent? Crown princess? Wasn't the betrothal a bit too hasty? She was an unknown daughter of the small Chow family. If she suddenly became the crown princess, it would definitely cause a huge uproar in the capital. Auber reached out to massage her head. She heard the voices of the palace servants. She saw a person dressed in a moon-white casual robe. His features were picturesque as he walked towards her with a smile. In an instant, Auber felt that all her worries had disappeared. Who cares? Everything will be fine when it comes to it. Today ended. Chapter 554. Early the next morning, when the sky was still just beginning to brighten, a marriage decree was delivered to the Chow estate, immediately stunning the entire family and even the entire capital. The Chow family, from the elderly matriarch to the servants, all knelt in front of the main hall to receive the decree. When they heard the edict say, "The Chow estate's eldest miss has a gentle, refined, and virtuous character, and is specifically designated as the crown prince's consort," some of the maids and servants who didn't know a certain child very well didn't express anything. They just had dumbfounded expressions. But the elderly matriarch couldn't help but twitch her mouth. Who said this? Who exactly was it? Could Chow Mu, that little girl, be worthy of these 8 words? Gentle character and what not? Could you stop joking around? At the end of the imperial decree, it even mentioned Xiao Zhongbang and Wei Ziqin. The great king said that the husband and wife had rendered meritorious service in raising the crown princess and specially promoted Xiao Zhongbang to be the Marquis of Jiyuan. His wife, Madame Nei Wei, was conferred the title of a third-rank noble lady and bestowed a marquis estate, jewelry, gems, brocades, food, and so on. The husband and wife looked at each other in bewilderment, unable to make heads or tails of this. On the contrary, second Uncle Chow immediately poked his eldest brother and gave him a look to quickly receive the decree. Old Chow's eldest son and wife hurriedly kowtowed to express their gratitude and respectfully received the imperial decree. Second Uncle Chow chuckled as he handed the decree-delivering eunuch 5 zhong of cloth, very generous. Nowadays, it was more appropriate to give cloth and food than gold, silver, and gems. Now that Raimi production was about to stop, the price of cloth also rose steadily by the day. The Mo Kingdom capital was still considered good, and its inventory was still abundant. In some of the other fortifications, the commoners' clothes hadn't been changed for several years and could last another 2 years with some mending. The 5 zhong of cloth that second Uncle Chow gave could be exchanged for 3 liters of rice, enough for a normal family to live frugally for half a month. Thus, this was considered a generous reward. The decree-delivering eunuch beamed as he accepted it, his attitude toward the Chow family much better and his words full of flattery. This residence in the Chow estate had been gifted to them by the crown prince when they first entered the capital. However, when the crown prince was trying to worm his way into being friends with his parents-in-law, he had never revealed his identity to them, so the couple was still in the dark. After receiving the edict, everyone in the Chow estate hurriedly packed their things and brought their family members, young and old, to move to the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. The Marquis of Jiyuan's estate was located on Minshun Avenue in the Mo Kingdom capital. Just its scale alone was extremely grand, with several courtyards inside. Just the gardens alone were divided into 5 or 6 sizes, with pavilions, terraces, and pavilions. The scenery was superb. Everyone naturally left the largest Nanju garden to the crown princess, while the others chose their own courtyards to stay in. The Chow family had very few people. After the entire family moved in, more than half of the Marquis's estate would be empty. In recent years, old Madame Dowager had not been able to do as she wished. After moving into Longevity Court, she hurriedly went to rest. Only Wei Ziqin was left to take care of the household matters, such as arranging the servants and counting the gifts bestowed by the emperor. An hour later, the news of the crown princess's betrothal had already spread throughout the entire capital. When Queen Zhao heard that the great king had appointed her precious son to such a baffling family, how could she sit still? She immediately brought along her personal nanny and hurried to the great king's royal study. At this time, the entire Mo kingdom capital had already exploded into a pot of congee. From the princes, dukes, marquis, and ministers to the commoners picking up rubbish, everyone was talking about, "Did you hear? The great king decreed His Highness the crown prince's betrothal." Chapter 555. The crown princess had never seen her in person and had only heard of her name. She had never appeared in front of anyone, but she had already become a hot topic both inside and outside Northern Mo's court. Talisman patrician family Mu Chanqian flew into a rage inside her room and smashed everything that could be smashed into smithereens. When Madame Mu entered and saw the mess on the floor, her brows twitched, and her heart ached immensely. The current situation wasn't good, so food had to be exchanged for things that were smashed. The family's stockpile of food wasn't enough for her daughter to squander like this. Thus, every item that was smashed was one less item. If this continued, this Miss Mu's boudoir would soon become empty. "All right, what's the use of throwing a tantrum?" Madame Mu grumpily said. "You're just making a fool of yourself in front of the second and third branches by making a scene here. Who dares to make fun of me?" Mu Chanqian's long, shapely brows shot up, and her hatred was hard to conceal. "What Marquis of Jiyuan's estate? I've never heard of it before. I don't know where this little B*tch came from, but she stole a man's soul in an instant. She really is a shameless B*tch. Yo! Look at what eldest miss is saying. She is the crown princess that the great king has officially betrothed. It's fine if eldest miss says this at home. But if this gets out, there's no doubt that our Mu family isn't strict in our upbringing, teaching a young lady to speak filthy words. It's fine if eldest miss is shameless, but don't drag so many unmarried young ladies in the estate down with you." A middle-aged woman in a luxurious gown chuckled as she walked in, followed by a young girl of similar age to Mu Chanqian, who was covering her mouth as she chuckled. When Madame Mu saw this woman, she immediately flared up in anger and bellowed at the maidservants, "Are you all dead? Don't you know how to announce the arrival of the second branches, madam? Hey, eldest sister-in-law, don't randomly blame the servants. We did announce her arrival. It's just that the sound of eldest miss throwing a tantrum and smashing things was drowned out by the sound of the announcement. Don't say that we, the mother and daughter of the second branch, are rude." Madame Mu looked at her sister-in-law's sarcastic words and was so jealous that her stomach hurt. She waved her hand impatiently and said, All right, Madame Lu, who doesn't know that you came here today to laugh at our first branch? Now that you're done, you can leave. This madam won't be seeing you off." "Hey, look at what sister-in-law is saying. I'm not here to laugh at you." The second branch's Madame Lu, chuckled as she pulled her daughter, Mu Zhilan, over. "I just wanted to tell sister-in-law. Tomorrow, Her Majesty the Queen will hold a banquet and invite the 3 dukes and 5 marquises." "Oh no, my mouth really doesn't know how to talk." Madame Lu giggled and lightly patted her own mouth. "It should be the 6 marquises' residences now. The 3 dukes and 6 marquises, young ladies from the various aristocratic families, will all be attending the banquet. Our family's eldest young miss is naturally unwilling to pass on this responsibility, but we can't do anything about eldest young miss' bad mood. For fear of ruining the entire banquet, sister-in-law, I volunteered to mention it to the family head. The family head agreed to let our Zhilan attend the banquet in eldest young miss's place tomorrow." "I'm really sorry, eldest sister." Mu Zhilan chuckled softly. All of a sudden, Mu Chanqian couldn't suppress the fury that shot out from the bottom of her heart. A bright yellow talisman flew over and directly smashed towards Mu Zhilan. B*tch, you're all B*cheese. Mu Zhilan's eyes narrowed slightly. She wasn't someone to be trifled with either. With a flick of her finger, a talisman also flew out. The 2 talismans collided in midair and split apart. Chapter 556. Arbor didn't know what kind of ruckus the entire Mo Kingdom capital was in right now. She slept soundly until the sun was high in the sky. When she opened her eyes, she discovered that it was almost noon. The Crown Prince was grinning as he propped up his chin and sat by the bed, gazing at her. When their eyes met, Arbor immediately shrunk her head into the brocade quilt wrapped in a cocoon. What was going on? That guy's slightly raised phoenix eyes looked very alluring. Once she accidentally touched them, she felt like her heart skipped a beat. It was very baffling. She shrunk into the quilt and calmly reached out to check her pulse. It was quite normal. Her body was very healthy. Suddenly, the quilt was lifted into the air. The little fellow, who was wrapped in the quilt, hastily poked her head out. "What are you doing? Get up, change clothes, and eat something. We still have to rush back to your maternal home. If we don't leave now, we won't even make it for lunch. In any case, we have to go back and have a reunion dinner." Reunion dinner again? The little fellow unhappily pursed her lips. "Don't you have to go to the southern study to handle matters today?" "It's done." The Crown Prince beamed as he took out a clean and moist handkerchief to wipe the little fellow's face. "How efficient am I? If we finish things early, we can stay at your maternal home for a whole day today." Xiao Yao, who was holding clothes at the side, pursed her lips and smiled. "I'll do it myself, I'll do it myself." Arbor reached out to take the clothes, but the Crown Prince avoided her hand and insisted on letting her wear them. Today, she changed into a light yellow robe with large sleeves, embellishing the little one with pink and tender skin. She then draped an extremely rare moon-white ice mink overcoat over it. The furry collar framed her ordinary little face until it was moist and rosy. After Xiao Yao finished braiding her hair and pasting on the beaded flowers, the little fellow sat in front of the dressing mirror and took out some medicinal powder to rub on her face. The Crown Prince raised a brow and looked at her with a grin. This little thing was finally willing to reveal its true appearance. As our dear Qiao Mu fiddled with her small face, she was still unconvinced. "Let me ask you, how did you, Duan Yu, and Situ Yi recognize me at a glance?" Mo Lien said with a smile. "Duan Yu and Situ Yi, those two fellows, definitely got it right by chance." "Of course it's because of you," Prince said as he walked behind her. "Jojo's every frown and smile is engraved in the depths of my heart. Even if I'm blindfolded, I can still see." Mo Lien was stunned. She paused for a moment before saying, "I recognized you." The little fellow turned her head to look at him. That little face without any makeup overlapped with the one in his memory. No, she was even more beautiful than he had imagined her to be when she grew up. Xiao Yao also widened her eyes and said excitedly, "Little miss, you've become prettier." "That's right, that's why I said, how could such a beautiful and adorable young lady be so ordinary when she grew up? I didn't dare to say anything these past 2 days." She was afraid of touching on Mrs. Sore Spot. She originally thought that a good-looking young lady would become ordinary when she grew up. Arbor looked at her speechlessly. The Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh, and he reached out to lead the little girl to his side. "Let's go, we'll take a carriage over." "Alright, you might not know yet. Your father has been conferred the title of Marquis of Jiyuan. The entire Chow family has moved to the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate on Minshun Avenue, right next to Minister Song's residence." His cheeks were so thin that they were sunken in. "Hey, you don't believe me? I'm telling you, Su Jiao, your mother-in-law and the eldest branch's family are living very well. In the past, they were doing very well in Shijiao City. 2 years ago, they moved out of Shijiao City without a word. I spent a lot of time and effort before finding out that they came to the Mo Kingdom capital." The old woman who spoke had an envious look in her eyes. She had a protruding chin, revealing her thick black teeth when she opened her mouth. Su Jiao was precisely the daughter-in-law of Old Qiao's third branch. Ever since the day of the zombie outbreak, Old Qiao's third branch's family of 3 had been completely unlucky. Back then, they didn't manage to hitch a ride on the eldest branch's cart and were left behind in the village. As they fled, they almost lost their lives. If it weren't for her family's Qiao Zhongheng erupting with a special ability at the crucial moment, how could the mother and son have escaped the tiger's den? They might have long been fed to a large pile of zombies. Because they left in a hurry, they practically didn't take anything with them. The Qiao family of 3 didn't want to recall their past misery. Chapter 558. Seated on the lazy donkey cart were Granny Niu and her family from the Wei family village. Many of their large family of more than a dozen people had died in the past few years, and only 7 people, including Granny Niu, were left. The lazy donkey had also lost a lot of weight, so it was impossible for it to pull 7 people on a long journey. It cursed and fought the entire way, desperately rushing to the Mo kingdom capital. Speaking of the Qiao family, Granny Niu had a bellyful of anger. Back in Shijiu City, Granny Niu's family insisted that Qiao Wanwan killed their 3rd son and frequently came to collect debts. In the beginning, the Qiao family would still give them some food and cloth. But after a long time, even Qiao Zhongbang, who had the best temper in the Qiao family, became annoyed with them and instructed the city lord to guard strictly. As long as their family appeared, they would be immediately chased far away. Later on, they simply couldn't approach the Qiao family in Pear Blossom Alley. Suffering from hunger and cold every day, several people in their family starved to death. Your old Qiao's eldest branch couple simply aren't humans. Granny Niu angrily said, I'm telling you, Su Jiao, you still have to find elderly lady for this matter. As long as elderly lady agrees, we might be able to stay. It's no use finding the eldest branch couple. Those 2 have hearts as hard as iron. Back then, my family's youngest grandson was so sick that he was about to die, but they weren't willing to give him a mouthful of hot soup. That's right, that's right. Granny Niu's eldest daughter-in-law, Madame Nei Bo, tugged Su Jiao's hand and earnestly advised, look at our 4th branch's family of 3, they all starved to death. It's clear how harsh and ungrateful your old Qiao's eldest branch is. They simply didn't tell us when they moved away from Shijiu City back then. Bah, tell us? They deliberately avoided us and directly moved away from Shijiu City. Granny Niu spat and turned her head to the side in an eccentric manner. I'm telling you, Su Jiao, your old Qiao's eldest branch is living well. They definitely have better prospects, so they moved to the Mo kingdom capital. Otherwise, why do you think they moved here? Isn't that logical? Auntie's words are very reasonable, Su Jiao said with a dark face. Sister-in-law, look at how hungry your Xiaolong is. They're both old Qiao's grandsons. Why should I? Madame Bo continued to pick and winked at the 2nd branch's daughter-in-law. Madame Sunday Madame Sun hurriedly followed up with a few words, but Madame Sun had always been clumsy with words, so she couldn't say much. Upon seeing this, Madame Nei Bo irritably glared at her sister-in-law. She tugged on Su Jiao's hand and persuaded earnestly, Sister-in-law, I'm only telling you this because I think you're my own sister-in-law. Back then, our family was screwed over miserably by your 1st branch. Not only did the 4th branch's family of 3 starve to death, but the 2nd branch's, oh, you can ask my sister-in-law, her 2 daughters also starved to death. At the mention of her 2 daughters who had starved to death, Sun She hurriedly wiped away her tears. At that time, there wasn't enough food at home. It must have been enough for the 3 sons of the 1st branch of the Wei family to eat. She gave birth to 3 daughters, but they didn't get much food. In the end, 2 of them starved to death. Granny Niu waved her hand and said, in short, let's try our best to contact your granny first. The Mo kingdom capital is so big, who knows where to find them? Su Jiao was so angry that her stomach hurt. When she recalled how her family of 3 had suffered for so many years, yet the 1st branch's people actually ate and drank well, she felt indignant. Humph, I don't believe that we can't find your old Qiao family with so many of us. I've taken a look. The monthly votes are over 1,000, and the number of recommendations has also broken through 6 figures. These 2 days, which is today and tomorrow, I'll be updating 10 chapters. But it won't be early, so I'll update 5 chapters first. You can come and read the 5 chapters tomorrow. I'll finish writing them before I sleep, even if it's early in the morning. Moi. Chapter 559. Not to mention how Su Jiao's party had persistently searched for the Qiao family's whereabouts after entering the city with evil intentions. The Crown Prince's carriage had already entered Minshun Avenue. When they were a dozen meters away from the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate, they saw a bunch of half-grown brats crowding around a corner, kicking and punching something. "Young master, is it about time?" This punk actually dared to speak rudely to young master. He deserves to be beaten to death. "Continue beating." A small boy's clear and crisp voice rang out as he harumphed. "He actually dares to scold me time and time again? Beat him to death for me." "Hee, Xiao San. I heard that this guy seems to be the youngest son of Tai Chong Temple's deputy minister. If we beat him to death, will something happen?" "What can happen? I have big brother here." The small boy raised his head and harumphed with his hands on his hips. "Let's see if he still dares to oppose me in the academy in the future. I'll beat whoever I want to beat." "Beat him. Use more strength. Did you not eat?" "Haha, that's right. We could beat him without fail in the past, let alone now. Now, your dad has been conferred the title of Marquis of Jiyuan by the great king. You're the only son of a marquis. Who dares to provoke you?" "Gao Feng, what are you wasting your breath for? Hurry and use more strength. I'm telling you, if you can't cripple him today, don't even think about having an easy time." "Young master, can we do it if he's crippled?" "Why can't we do it? My big brother will take care of everything." "Beat him as much as you want. Beat him ruthlessly." The small boy directed his lackeys to beat and kick the boy who had curled up into a ball in the circle. "All right, young master, rest and watch this one exert his strength." Abba was still in the carriage when he clenched his small fists tightly. The Crown Prince coughed and was just about to say something when he was abruptly glared at by the little one's clear and cold eyes. His heart instantly thumped, and he inwardly cursed. "The big brother he's talking about is you." Abba's lips curled slightly as he asked coldly, "Jojo, listen to me." Prince cursed his brother-in-law in his heart. Xiao San is still young. Let's teach him slowly." Abba didn't want to pay any more attention to him. He lifted the curtain with a swish, and before the carriage came to a stop, he jumped down, frightening the coachman. "What are you doing? Why aren't you stopping yet?" Qiao Mu shouted angrily. The 7 or 8 youths who were beating up the other youths simultaneously stopped and turned around to look. When they saw the young lady in front of them looking at them with her cold eyes, they couldn't help but shiver slightly. Intimidated by her terrifying aura, they all huddled together. Abba's gaze fell on a 7 or 8-year-old boy in the front row. Draped in a thick deer fur cloak and wearing a brocade robe embroidered with golden thread, the little boy had red lips, white teeth, and bright eyes. His little face was red from the cold wind, and he was very cute. Looking at the lively little person in front of him, Abba's cold eyes loosened a bit. "You, who are you? Why are you poking your nose into my business?" The little boy looked at Abba with an inexplicable fear in his heart. He opened his mouth, but still straightened his neck and scolded. When the Crown Prince heard that this was bad, he hurriedly lifted the curtain and stepped down from the carriage. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Abba laugh coldly. "You're so young, yet you don't learn good things. You're acting like a hedonistic son of a rich family. Why aren't you letting him go?" she shouted angrily, and the servant who was pressing down the little boy with a bruised nose and swollen face was so shocked that he retracted his hand and subconsciously trembled. Chapter 560. The little boy was also enraged. He stepped forward and kicked that boy with a bruised nose and a swollen face. Placing both hands on his waist, he roared fearlessly, "Who is he to you? If you want to stand up for him, you have to figure out who I am first. I'm telling you, in this Mo Kingdom capital, no one dares to provoke me, little tyrant Xiao Sen." The Crown Prince sweated profusely from the side. F*CK, You already proclaimed yourself as little tyrant, so what else could the Crown Prince say? The Crown Prince wished for nothing more than to go up and cover that child's mouth. He face-palmed and called out, "Jojo." He was thinking about how to put in a few good words for his little brother-in-law to smooth over this matter. This child really hit the jackpot today. This child was clearly very obedient in front of the elders on normal days. Why was he so unlucky today? Arbor turned back in anger and glared fiercely at the Crown Prince. The fury in his heart rushed up from the darkest corner at once. He rushed forward in 3 steps, picked up his little brother with one hand, and slapped him twice on the back without any explanation. These 2 slaps weren't light either. Our dear Chao Sen had never suffered this kind of grievance since he was young, and he started crying with a wah. The 2 henchmen beside him were anxious. They rolled up their sleeves, wanting to pick a fight with Arbor as they cursed, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You don't want to live anymore? You even dare to provoke the little sir of our Marquis of Jiyuan's estate?" Seeing that things were getting out of hand, the Crown Prince hurriedly shouted, "Stop!" Our dear Chao Sen hadn't seen this lord at first, but when he heard the familiar voice, he turned around and looked like he had seen a relative he hadn't seen in 800 years. He shook his little arms and legs, wailing as he struggled to break free from Arbor's grasp. He raised both hands in Prince Mo's direction and shouted with all his might, "Big brother, big brother! Big brother, save me, big brother!" However, his big brother couldn't save him today either. Not only couldn't he save him, but Big Brother also had a bad feeling. It was very likely that he would be thoroughly implicated by this pig of a brother-in-law. It was over. The Crown Prince stole a glance at the little fellow's expression. It was really over. The little lass had gotten angry. That stoic face was already completely filled with fury, and her eyes were even more blazing. "Come with me. Come with me to someone else's house and apologize." Arbor reprimanded angrily. "You want me to apologize to him?" Chao Sen jumped up like an angry little animal. With 2 lines of tears on his face, he shouted angrily, "I'm not going. I'm the young master of the Marquis estate. Who does he think he is? His father was just a small government official. I won't apologize to him." The Crown Prince ran over to cover his brother-in-law's mouth, but it was too late. Chao Mu had already kicked her younger brother in anger. She was extremely measured in this kick, so it was actually not heavy. It was just that it made our dear Chao Sen sprawl on the ground. Feeling especially ashamed, he opened his mouth and started bawling loudly. The Crown Prince hurriedly rushed forward and picked up his brother-in-law. Arbor ignored him. He reached out and pulled the little boy who was being beaten to his side. He patted his dirty little robe and held his little hand. "Don't be afraid. You're a good child. Big sister will definitely make that bad child apologize to you." That little boy was also a tough nut to crack. He looked to be about the same age as Chao Sen, but he didn't utter a word after being beaten to this extent. He didn't even shed a single tear. Chao Sen stayed in the Crown Prince's arms. When he heard Arbor call him a bad child, he immediately refused to comply. He cried and yelled, "I'm not a bad child, I'm not a bad child. Big brother, she scolded me. Big brother." Chapter 561. The Crown Prince's face was full of helplessness. He reached out and lightly pinched his waist, saying softly, "Shut up, this is your sister. Your big sister is back." Little Chao Sen's stupefied face was still hanging with 2 lines of tears. His expression was especially comical. The Crown Prince glared at him, annoyed and amused. He said softly to him, "You've angered your sister quite badly, let me tell you. You have to coax her properly. Otherwise, if you're unlucky, I'll also be unlucky with you." Big sister? The big sister that father-mother often talked about, the one who went to a super large sect to cultivate? Little Chao Sen immediately became listless. "Look at how you've beaten him up. I don't believe that this is what mother taught you. Bullying others with your power. Utterly unreasonable." Arbor was so angry that he wanted to go up and beat this stinking brat. The Crown Prince hurriedly stopped him and smiled apologetically. Jojo, your brother is still young. Don't hit him, don't hit him. Go away. Don't protect him all the time. Look at how you've taught him. At such a young age, you've earned yourself the title of the capital's little overlord. You've really given old Qiao's family face. Little Qiao Sen shrank into the Crown Prince's embrace and looked at his fuming sister in silence, sobbing and unable to speak. Get down and immediately go to their house with me to apologize. I'm telling you, if you don't apologize today, I'll… apologize. Little San is very obedient. He'll definitely go and apologize. The Crown Prince hurriedly pulled down the little fellow's raised hand and winked at his brother-in-law. I am sorry, Ran Hongfei. I won't bully you in the future. In the academy, I'll take care of you. When the little fellow saw the Crown Prince's expression, he immediately wilted and hurriedly apologized to the little boy with a bruised nose and swollen face. Go to his house. Arbor was so angry that he didn't enter the Qiao estate's main gate. He directly pulled the two children into the carriage and turned his head to the side with a sullen face, not saying a word. The Crown Prince's heart was beating like a drum as he watched. He went up and secretly hooked her little finger, but Miss Qiao threw him away. The Crown Prince's handsome face immediately turned green. It's over. This time, he was really dragged down by his pig-like brother-in-law. What to do? The Crown Prince's carriage made a detour to the residence of Ran Pangjing, the deputy minister of Taichung Temple. Ran Pangjing was practicing calligraphy in his study when he heard that His Highness the Crown Prince had come. He immediately called his wife and two sons to change clothes and go out to welcome the Crown Prince's carriage. His mind was in a daze. This official greets Your Highness. I did not know Your Highness is coming. Wei Chen did not go out to meet you. Ran Pangjing, together with his wife and son, hastily opened the front door and went out to greet Wei Chen. Compared to the empty Min Shun Avenue, the path in front of the Taichung Temple's deputy minister's house appeared to be extremely lively. When the commoners heard that the Crown Prince's carriage had arrived at Sir Ren's residence, they hurriedly knelt down to pay their respects. Welcome, Your Highness. Madame Ran was a typical sweet-tempered woman. Although she was anxious when she saw her youngest son being led over with a bloody nose and a swollen face, she didn't criticize him. Instead, she gently brought her eldest son and second son to greet him. The Crown Prince was a little embarrassed. He reached out and shook Arbor's little hand. This is the Crown Princess. Our dear Crown Princess was in a fit of anger. She couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him and slapped his hand away. Ran Pangjing and Madame Ran were astonished for a moment. When they saw the young lady in front of them clearly, they couldn't help but sigh inwardly and hurriedly went up to greet her. Greetings, Crown Princess. Chapter 562. Qiao Xin, kneel down. Arbor turned her head and looked at her younger brother sternly. The Crown Prince, who was despised by his wife, coughed lightly and reminded his brother-in-law that it was best not to anger his sister at this time. Qiao Sen knelt down aggrievedly and lowered his head. He didn't look like the little tyrant in the academy at all. Arbor led Ran Hongfei to Madame Ran and bowed. Sir Ran and Madame Ran were so shocked that they hurriedly moved away and returned the greeting. Sir Ran, Madame Ran, I'm really sorry. My younger brother was negligent in disciplining him and beat your son to this state. I'm really worried. Arbor said softly, on the way here, I already examined your son. Fortunately, they are all superficial wounds, so I'll give this bottle of pills to your son. Take the red pills orally and apply them externally. He will recover in 2 days. Crown Princess, you're exaggerating. Sir Ran and Madame Ren bowed. Arbor shook her head. It's my younger brother's fault. Arbor glanced coldly at Qiao Sen, who was sneaking glances at her, and said, Xiao Yao, go get the ferule. Xiao Yao glanced at the miserable Qiao Sen and hurriedly begged for mercy. Miss, young master is still young and insensible. He won't dare to do this again in the future. Let's forget about it this time. He'll be 8 years old after the new year. Look at the 8-year-old children in other families. Which one of them is as crafty and undisciplined as him? Where are the books and etiquette that he learned in the academy? Arbor looked coldly at Xiao Yao. Are you not going to listen to what I say? Yes. Xiao Yao immediately shriveled and hurriedly turned around to get the ferule. Madame Ren wanted to stop her, but Arbor stopped her. She turned around and stared coldly at Xiao Sr. Do you admit defeat when elder sister hit you today? Elder sister, I know I was wrong. Xiao San looked fearfully at the cold ferule and looked pleadingly at the crown prince who was standing at the side. Prince received his brother-in-law's gaze and hurriedly reached out to pull Arbor's small hand. Jojo, Xiao San knows he's wrong. You're still protecting him. Arbor was furious. He pushed the crown prince's hand away and shouted at his younger brother, Hand! Xiao San shuddered and raised his little hand involuntarily. Pa! The ruler landed on his tiny palm, causing little Xiao San to tremble in pain as he burst into tears. After 3 slaps, Crown Prince saw that his brother-in-law's hands were red and swollen, crying pitifully. He couldn't bear it and went forward to grab his little wife. Jojo, that's enough. Xiao San will definitely be obedient in the future. Don't worry, he'll definitely remember this and won't bully his classmates in the future. As he spoke, he quickly winked at Xiao. Senator Xiao Sen wailed, Sister, I was wrong. Sister, sob sob sob. Madame Ran didn't dare to offend the Crown Prince's brother-in-law and hurriedly tried to dissuade him, saying that it was just children playing around and shouldn't be taken too seriously. After sending off the furious Crown Princess, the couple looked at each other and pulled their youngest son in front of them to take a closer look. Sure enough, they saw that the wounds on his hands and face had been carefully treated. The medicine used was also unheard of and was very precious. Some of the small wounds on the child's face had already healed. Elder sister is a good person, Ren Hongfei said softly. His father glared at him. What nonsense are you saying? That's Her Highness the Crown Princess. How can you casually claim kinship? Remember this in the future. Chapter 563. After going back and forth, they didn't even have time to drink a mouthful of water, let alone have a reunion dinner. By the time they returned to the Qiao estate, it was already past lunchtime. It was already afternoon. Jojo, don't be angry. The Crown Prince hastily corrected his attitude and admitted his mistake as soon as he got on the carriage. He then gave his brother-in-law a meaningful glance. Our dear Xiao Sen was someone who knew when to yield and when not to. When he saw that his all-powerful older brother had to carefully curry favor with his older sister, he knew that he couldn't afford to offend his older sister. He hastily reached out to hug his older sister's leg and wailed, Older sister, I was wrong. Older sister, please forgive me. He had always maintained the image of an obedient and clever child in front of his family's elders. Wei Ziqin and the others were completely unaware of his nickname as the capital's little tyrant. When this little fellow first arrived in the capital, he wasn't that daring. It was mainly after experiencing a few incidents that he realized his older brother was especially capable and powerful, so he started to become increasingly fearless. As long as he suffered any grievances, he just had to cry in front of his older brother, and the matter would immediately be resolved. At first, there were still people who dared to bully him in the academy, but later on, not only did they make a detour when they saw him, but they were also especially fawning over him. When they saw him, they would call him Little Young Master Qiao and were extremely respectful. He would go to his older brother for anything he wanted. If he got into any trouble, he would also go to his older brother. His older brother would run over to his house every 2 to 3 days, and he would bring a lot of gifts every time he came back. He basically allowed the little fellow to take whatever he wanted. In addition, he was the only male grandchild in the entire old Qiao family, so old Madam doted on him a lot. Sometimes, when Wei Ziqin wanted to scold him, old Madam would protect him. This child's one sentence had the effect of hundreds of people responding to his call. Chao Sen was young and lived an arrogant and luxurious life. How could his little tail not fly to the sky? Now, he finally knew how terrifying his older sister was. If he offended his older sister, even his older brother couldn't protect him. Thus, this older sister was very powerful. He was young, but he knew how to read people's expressions. When he saw that his older sister's expression had softened, he cried even harder and begged for mercy. Arbor didn't want to beat him up. She just recalled her previous life. She had a good younger brother who was raised crooked by Wen Rawan and became a hedonistic debauchee. He would fight with others in the brothel all day long and was beaten to death at the age of 16. Thinking of this, she turned her little head away and looked out the window with reddened eyes, not saying a word. The Crown Prince's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly reached out and hugged the little one. His heart was filled with regret and sadness. "I'm sorry, Jojo. I swear, I won't spoil him anymore. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's all because I've always been obedient to him. That's why he's acting so lawlessly. Don't be angry with yourself. Just hit me." The Crown Prince took a small hand and patted his chest. "Hit me hard." Chao Mu turned her head to glare at him. This really was a peerlessly good brother. Little did she know that the Crown Prince was also tricked by his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law was usually well-mannered and well-behaved in front of him. He didn't live in the Chao estate and would usually come and go in a hurry. He would visit his parents-in-law and leave a gift before leaving. He was only a 7 or 8-year-old child. How could he know that this kid was so crafty and usually put on an act? When Mou, that brat, was young, the Crown Prince also allowed his younger brother to do whatever he wanted and gave him whatever he wanted. This brother-in-law was no different from his own younger brother, so who would have thought that his brother-in-law would be so tricked? 10 o'clock in the morning. Chapter 564. The carriage turned back to Min Shun Avenue and slowly moved along the bluestone paved street. In the carriage, Chao Sen sobbed for a while. His little face was flushed red, and he looked rather pitiful. Arbor looked at his red and swollen hand and pursed her lips without saying a word. After a while, when his sobbing subsided, she pulled his arm in front of her and flipped her hand to take out a small bottle of ointment. The ointment's effect of removing blood stasis and reducing swelling was naturally excellent. After applying a small piece, Chao Sen's red and swollen hand immediately reduced by more than half. "Sister, are you still angry?" Chao Sen peeked at his sister and said weakly. "Shao Senator sister beat you up. Do you blame me?" Arbor asked softly and stopped what she was doing. Chao Sen hurriedly shook his head. This child was very clever. When he saw his big brother's gaze, which clearly said, "You dare to blame me? Brother will beat you up again immediately," this little rascal immediately cowered. "Then tell me, why did sister have to mercilessly punish you today?" Chao Mu asked. Chao Sen peeked at the Crown Prince, who glared at him unhappily. He hurriedly turned back and said, I shouldn't have bullied Ren Hongfei. I won't bully him in the future." "That's not entirely the reason." Arbor looked at him indifferently. She put aside the ointment in her hand and said softly, "It's sister's heartache. How could my little brother be like this? Sister doesn't ask you to bring peace to the world through martial arts, but at least, the little brother in my heart can maintain a trace of kindness. Unlike the one in front of us, who bullies the weak and unreasonable." "Is it fun to bully him? There are so many of you, but you beat and kicked him. Do you have any face?" Little Chao Sen sniffled and went up to hug his sister's arm pitifully. He swore with all his might, "Sister, I won't do it again. Please don't be angry. Sister, Shao Sen will change. I will definitely change." Big sister's snow moon-like bright eyes revealed disappointment, which made little Chao Sen feel very uncomfortable. "Who is that Gao Feng? He's also from the academy. His father is one of the richest merchants in the city." Arbor didn't immediately ask a brother to cut ties with Gao Feng, even though she knew that Gao Fong was one of Chao Sen's friends in her previous life. However, considering that the child might have a negative reaction, she temporarily suppressed it and did not say anything. The reason why Xiao Sen was like this was inseparable from his family's upbringing. Fortunately, he was still young and could be taught. Therefore, Arba did not continue to scold him. Instead, he looked out of the window thoughtfully. She did not believe that her parents would teach Xiao Sen to be such a bully. There must be a reason behind it. At this moment, the carriage had already arrived at the main entrance of the Marquis of Jiyuan's estate. Wei Ziqin was anxiously waiting at the door. She had just heard that when Jojo came back, he happened to see Xiao Sen fighting with someone. This child did not enter the house and directly took Xiao Sen to the other party's house to apologize. She didn't know what had happened and was feeling anxious. When she saw the carriage stop in front of the door, her eyes lit up. Wei Ziqin took a few steps down the stairs with excitement in her heart. She saw the curtain lift and a 14 to 15-year-old girl draped in ice sable fur came out of the carriage. Her otherworldly face, which was made of ice and snow, crashed into Wei Ziqin's eyes, causing her to be dazed for a moment. It was as if she saw. Madame Wei's heart was filled with comfort. Her eyes instantly became blurry with tears. The scroll was finished. Chapter 565. With a glance, Qiao Mu saw her mother standing at the entrance, and the corners of her eyes and forehead had clearly increased with fine wrinkles. In an instant, Arba's heart was filled with longing. She quickly walked towards her mother, walking faster and faster until she was sprinting. Wei Ziqin also hurriedly ran down the steps. She shook off the hand of a servant girl who wanted to support her and ran towards her daughter with open arms. "Mother!" Arba rushed over and was immediately pulled into Wei Ziqin's arms. Wei Ziqin reached out and patted her on the back. With tears in her eyes, she scolded, "You stinky child! Tell me, what did you tell mother when you left? You said that you'd be back in 3 years if you were fast. What about now? How many years has it been? How many years have you not been back? You haven't even written a letter in 2 to 3 years. You're deliberately making mother worried to death. You child." "I'm sorry, mother." Arba raised her head with red eyes. She acted coquettishly in her mother's arms and said pitifully, "Something happened and daughter couldn't make it back in time. Look, you're going to be a girl of marriageable age soon, but you're still acting coquettishly in mother's arms." Wei Ziqin smiled through her tears and reached out to poke the little girl's forehead. When she looked up at Emolienne, who was quickly following behind, her face was filled with embarrassment. "Little Mo, I've made a fool of myself in front of you." "How could that be, Auntie? Let's talk inside." Okay. Jojo's father and second uncle still don't know that Jojo is back. Come, let's go inside first." Wei Ziqin held her daughter's hand and looked at Prince Mo with regret. Crown Prince Mo found his mother-in-law's regretful gaze very strange no matter how he looked at it. What a pity. Wei Ziqin sighed in her heart. She didn't know what was wrong with the great king of the Mo kingdom. Why did he suddenly decree a marriage for his daughter? Otherwise, she would have thought highly of Xiaoma. Xiaoma was a mature and steady child with a good temper. Most importantly, he was filial. It was hard to find such a good boy. Although he was a few years younger than their daughter, he was older and could dote on her. Besides, the two of them were a match made in heaven and could be considered childhood sweethearts. The couple knew Xiaoma well, so they could rest assured leaving their daughter in his care. It was a match made in heaven. But now, sigh. Although her daughter was about to be of marriageable age, in Wei Ziqin's eyes, she was still too young. The palace was also a place full of trouble, so how could she bear to harm her own daughter? However, the king's orders could not be disobeyed. Ever since that strange imperial edict was issued, Wei Ziqin had not eaten much for lunch. Her heart was filled with anxiety. Arba snuck a glance at the crown prince, then turned and waved at Xiao Sen, who was alighting from the carriage. Xiao Sen skipped forward in small steps, his head shrinking back slightly. When Wei Ziqin saw this naughty and mischievous youngest son, her face turned stern. Xiao Sen, what were you doing at the door just now? Why did you anger your eldest sister the moment she returned? Xiao Sen immediately hugged his mother's thigh. Mother, elder sister has already forgiven Xiao Senior. Little young master, what happened to your hand? A servant girl with a delicate face and a tall figure quickly walked out from Wei Ziqin's side. She bent down and picked up Xiao Sen's small hand, softly saying a sentence. Wei Ziqin's gaze landed on her youngest son's hand. Although most of the swelling on Xiao Sen's hand had disappeared, it was still a little red. It just didn't look as frightening as before. Chapter 566. Wei Ziqin frowned. Donghe, why aren't you greeting eldest miss? You're so unruly. Only then did the maidservant named Donghe put down Xiao Sen's hand in terror. She turned around and gave Arbor a salute. Donghe greets eldest Mississippi. Arbor swept a glance at her before turning to look at her mother. Wei Ziqin smiled. You haven't returned for many years, and you don't know that there are many new people in the family. Let's go in first. Little young master, does your hand still hurt? Donghe followed behind and asked softly. Little young master must be tired. This servant will carry you in. Little Xiao Sen was just about to lie down on Donghe like in the past, only to see her eldest sister abruptly turn her head. Her clear and cold eyes abruptly glared at that servant girl. Let go. This furious shout immediately gave Dong He, as well as the two manservants guarding the door, a huge fright. Donghe seemed to have been bitten by a venomous snake as she hurriedly retracted her hands. Can't you walk by yourself? Arbor was impatient with this kind of young master and young misbehavior. She looked coldly at the maidservant named Donghe. How old are you already? What kind of person are you to hang out with all these dubious people all day long? The eyes of the dubious maidservant Donghe immediately reddened from grievance. She gritted her teeth and lowered her head, concealing the unwillingness in her eyes. Walk properly. How many times has mother told you that you should be scolded by your eldest sister if you don't have proper manners? Wei Ziqin patted her son in annoyance and pulled him into the house. Little Xiao Sen obediently stepped into the house by himself. Steward Chong Zai, who came after hearing the news, greeted eldest miss with a face full of smiles and then followed along. Seeing many unfamiliar faces along the way, Arbor couldn't help but frown. Mother, why are there so many idle people in the house? Idle people. The corner of Chong Zai's mouth twitched. Sure enough, little master didn't like those extra servants. Wei Ziqin looked at her daughter in amusement. The mother and daughter pair held hands and walked affectionately toward the main hall. Actually, it's not that many people. Your grandmother likes the house to be more lively, so she bought more than 10 servant girls. Your grandmother left 2 servant girls to accompany her and chat with her. All in all, our Chow family has a total of 21 people. Compared to the rules of a normal manor, there are far fewer manservants and maids. Wei Ziqin said to her daughter in a kind manner. Arbor turned his head and glared at the crown prince unhappily. It must be this fellow who sent this and that every 2 to 3 days, making the family very rich. Otherwise, how could father and second uncle go out to do missions from time to support such a large number of people? Speaking of which, these idlers were mostly supported by the crown prince. Prince stepped forward innocently and hooked Arbor's little finger. Jojo. Auntie was right. There weren't many new servants in the house. Now that the courtyard is so big, it's troublesome to take care of it. You don't want Auntie to work too hard, right? Arbor snorted and turned his head away, not wanting to pay attention to him. Wei Ziqin, on the other hand, was somewhat alarmed. She hurriedly stepped forward to separate the two people's hands, looking at her daughter with a face that wanted to say something but hesitated. Chow, chow chow, mother has something to tell you. Crown Prince was baffled. He didn't understand why his mother-in-law had stepped forward to break up an affectionate couple. Mother, Tell me. What is it? Daughter, this morning, the family received an imperial edict. The great king somehow betrothed you to the current crown prince. Tell me about this, AI. Wei Ziqin sighed. Chapter 567. Wiping away her tears, Wei Ziqin looked at the crown prince with regret. She couldn't bear to part ways with the child she thought highly of, so she said, "Little Amo, Auntie knows that you like our family's chow chow. But this matter." Sigh, His Majesty had randomly arranged a matchmaker and had even arranged a marriage for no reason. Men and women are different, so don't get too close to our Jojo in the future. Aba's mouth twitched. The crown prince was dumbfounded and hurriedly said, "No, Auntie, that. I know." Wei Ziqin interrupted him and sighed. She took Emolien's hand and patted it familiarly. Acting like an elder, she said earnestly, "As subjects, it's not appropriate for us to say anything about the great king. But there aren't any outsiders here, so I'll tell you in private. This great king is too reckless. What do you think our Jojo has to do with the crown prince? Our Chow family has always been a small family, so I can't figure it out. Where did the great king's decree come from?" The crown prince cast a pleading look at Jojo. "You should tell your mother." Chow Mu didn't say anything and even tugged at her lips as she rolled her eyes at him that said, "Do as you see fit." She then walked forward while holding her mother's arm. "Mom, don't worry about that crown prince. Let's go see Dad and second uncle first. This child, it's fine if you talk about it at home, but don't do this when you're outside. That's the crown prince, you can't disrespect him." Wei Ziqin reminded her daughter. The crown prince felt an inexplicable sense of danger. Would his mother-in-law fly into a rage when she found out the truth and chase him out in a fit of anger? What's going on? Why am I so unlucky today? What's happening today? The group entered the main hall. His father, Qiao Zhongbang, and second uncle, Qiao Zhongxing, who had heard the news, quickly strode in. "Jojo, you're finally willing to come back from the sect." Qiao Zhongxing laughed heartily as he strode towards his niece. "Daughter." Qiao Zhongbang also hurriedly ran over with a joyful expression. "Father, second uncle." Aba glanced at the two of them and saw that their cultivation bases had both risen slightly. Second uncle was now a level 4 peak body cultivator, while father's cultivation had reached the phenomenal success of level 7 mystic cultivation. Compared to the geniuses of the large sects, the growth of their cultivation was very slow. As time passed, it would be more difficult for them to grow. If he could find the time to refine some Shen breaking pills and body tempering pills, they could help the two of them break through 1 or 2 levels. "Daughter, it's good that you're back. Look, you've lost a lot of weight. Your mother has been nagging me about you every day. When you come back, stay at home and let your mother nourish you well." When the crown prince heard this, he immediately had the urge to grab his wife and run away. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have sent the little fellow back so quickly. Now that he had entered the house, he couldn't go back. "Older sister." Everyone was chatting when a shout came from the door. Aba turned around and saw Xiao Lin Er's rosy little face full of smiles. Her pair of eyes were wrinkled and sparkling as she dashed through the door and threw herself at her. Aba hurriedly reached out to catch her, her heart instantly filled to the brim. Her younger sister was no longer as pitiful and submissive as she was in her previous life. This little face in high spirits was really beautiful. "Older sister, you're finally back." Qiao Lin was nearly 11 years old and no longer looked as chubby as when she was young. Now, she was a slender little girl. Chapter 568. Xiao Lin you've grown a lot taller. Aba looked at her little sister's cheerful figure and her mood was lifted. She had also temporarily thrown all those troublesome matters to the back of her mind. "Sister, you're even prettier than before." All right. These two sisters have only just met and they're already praising each other. Wei Ziqin couldn't help but giggle. She held her daughters in each hand and couldn't hide her fondness for them. Jojo, Mother will take you to see your Nanju garden. You'll live there in the future. If you don't like it, how about we change? When the Crown Prince heard that, he was going to live there. The Crown Prince hurried forward and smiled at Wei Ziqin. Auntie, Jojo still has to return to the palace today. There's a palace banquet tomorrow night. Auntie must know about it. When the banquet is over, it won't be too late for Jojo to move home in 2 days. The Crown Prince's words meant that he still had to wait for the banquet to be over before he could return home in 2 days. To put it bluntly, the Queen's palace banquet had nothing to do with whether or not Auber moved home. Even if Xiao Mu were to stay at home now, she would just enter the palace with her mother tomorrow night. After all, her mother was currently a marchioness with a third-rank title, so she definitely had to attend the banquet and meet the noble ladies of the capital while she was at it. Of course, the banquet wouldn't be a good one. This was inevitable. She would see who dared to provoke her. Auber's mother was led astray by the Crown Prince's words. When she thought of the palace banquet, she frowned. Jojo, I don't know what the Crown Prince's personality is like. When you enter the palace tomorrow, you'll probably have to meet him. I don't know what that great king is thinking. You haven't even reached marriageable age yet and he's already betrothed you to His Highness the Crown Prince. Although there's still some time before the wedding, the status is already set. Her mother began to nag about her daughter's boundless marriage path again, full of worry and worry. Auber's mouth twitched. She received the Crown Prince's pleading gaze and couldn't help but curse him inwardly. She snorted and turned her face away. The Crown Prince hurriedly stretched out his finger to scratch her small palm and gently tugged at her. Auber coughed and reached out to hold his mother's arm and said softly, "Mother, do you remember what I told you before? There was once when your daughter was almost kidnapped by someone from an evil sect, but was saved by a young hero?" I remember. Of course, Mother remembers. Wei Ziqin's face paled at the mention of this. She still remembered that her daughter had told her that someone from the evil sect had taken a fancy to her daughter's talent and wanted to capture her to make her into a puppet. Yes. Actually, that young swordsman is the current Crown Prince. Wei Ziqin opened her mouth slightly. His Highness saved you? Okay. Auber nodded. Wei Ziqin said gratefully, "Then Mother must properly thank His Highness the Crown Prince when I enter the palace this time." At this moment, the incompetent brother-in-law standing at the side spoke up, "Big brother, didn't Ran Hongfei's parents just call you Your Highness the Crown Prince? Why should Mother enter the palace to thank you? Can't she thank you now?" Wei Ziqin abruptly turned her head to look at the slender and elegant young man. Her pair of eyes were already wide open. Emolien. Qiao Zhongbang suddenly slapped his thigh. This little M.O. was called so coherently that no one had thought about it. Actually, that child Emolien seemed to have revealed her name the moment she entered the door. Wasn't the current world surnamed M.O.? First 5:00. First 5:00 at night. Chapter 569. Qiao Zhongbang, Wei Ziqin, and the others were just about to step forward to salute when Emolien hastily stopped them. "Uncle Auntie, there are no outsiders here, so we won't pay attention to those empty formalities." What a joke. His little wife was glaring at him, so how could he dare to let Qiao Zhongbang and his wife greet him? "I didn't deliberately hide it from you before, so please forgive me." "Your Highness the Crown Prince is too serious," Qiao Zhongbang quickly said. "Uncle, Auntie, you can call me Little Mo like you always do at home. Uncle, Auntie, and second uncle are all my elders, so calling me this sounds more intimate." This. Qiao Zhongbang hesitated for a moment, but it was Wei Ziqin who readily agreed. "Little Mo, you're too much. You didn't say anything and made Auntie worry for the entire day." She thought that the great king had randomly arranged the Mandarin ducks, but who knew that it was actually a misunderstanding? Auber stood at the side without uttering a word. She could tell that the Crown Prince had been putting in a lot of effort to visit her family recently. Look at how happy he had coaxed her mother, calling him little Mo this and little Mo that. In the beginning, perhaps there were still some restraints due to her identity, but after chatting for a while, her mother completely recovered to her usual self. Prince Mo chatted with Arba's mother for a while before turning to smile at Arba. See, I already told my future parents-in-law. There's no problem at all, right? Arba turned her small head and pulled Xiao Lin's hand. Xiao Lin, you triggered your mystic meridians. Xiao Lin nodded vigorously. Last year, a mentor from the Mystic Cultivator Association helped me trigger my mystic meridians successfully. Sister, I'm a level 4 mystic cultivator now. A level 4 mystic cultivator who wasn't even 11 years old was already considered outstanding talent and excellent constitution. Arba nodded in satisfaction. Sister can tell that you worked very hard. Xiao Lin's eyes revealed a smile, and she pursed her small lips. While the family was happily chatting, Dong He's silhouette flashed at the door. She then swiftly went out and hurriedly ran towards the old madam's longevity court. The old lady had just finished her afternoon nap, and Dong He happened to bump into her as she was getting up. Hearing that Dong He had rushed over, the old madam's eyes flickered slightly, and she said to the head maid beside her, Shiyun, bring her in. Soon, Dong He's tall figure appeared before Wang She's eyes. Dong He, you came to find me in such a hurry. Did something happen on Master's side? Old Madam held a cup of tea and drank it unhurriedly. Her eyes swept over Dong He who was kneeling in front of her without batting an eyelid. Dong He hurriedly crawled to Old Madam on her knees and deliberately squeezed out 2 drops of tears. Old Madam, I'm afraid you still don't know. Young Miss is back. What? The old lady was shocked. At the mention of Arba, her heart was filled with a pair of icy eyes, and the hand holding the teacup froze for no reason. Dong He didn't detect Old Madam's abnormality and even added fuel to the fire as she complained, Young Miss really is an old-fashioned and strict person. As soon as she entered the house, she beat up little young master without any explanation. Little young master is only so old. What does a 7 or 8-year-old know? Young Miss beat little young master's palm until it was red and swollen. It really makes one's heart ache. Madam actually didn't say anything and just let young Miss do as she pleased. This servant really can't stand it anymore. Moreover, Old Madam, young Miss has been back for so long, but she actually didn't come over to pay respects to you. She's seriously too unfilial. Dong He pursed her lips. Chapter 570. Just now, this servant saw that little young master was beaten so pitifully, so this servant wanted to carry little young master away to apply some ointment. Who knew that eldest miss would berate this servant without any explanation and even say that this servant is that kind of indecent person. Dong He continued to complain with an aggrieved expression, Old Madam, in any case, this servant is someone that you assigned to master and madam. Eldest miss not giving this servant any face clearly shows that she doesn't put Old Madam in her eyes. With every sentence that Dong He said, Wang Nei's expression turned worse by a few degrees. Finally, she slammed the table and shouted angrily, This little girl's temper has grown increasingly these few years. This old one wants to meet her. Look at how good my good granddaughter is now to be able to do something like beating her own younger brother the moment she entered the house, causing the entire family to be in a state of chaos. Having achieved her goal, Dong He secretly revealed a sinister smile. She hurriedly wiped away her tears and stood up, following Old Madam with small steps. Shiyun frowned and caught up with Old Madam's footsteps. She whispered, Old Madam, you're going to the antechamber by yourself? Then why are you looking for eldest miss? Don't forget, eldest miss's current status is completely different. Early this morning, His Majesty issued a marriage decree and has already betrothed her to His Highness the Crown Prince. Eldest Miss is now Her Highness the Crown Princess. There's a difference between a monarch and a subject. If you rashly rush over to reprimand her like this and someone with ulterior motives finds out, they will definitely make a big fuss about it. Thinking carefully, Old Madam almost broke out in a cold sweat. She turned to look at Shiyun and nodded repeatedly. Shiyun's words are very true. Seeing that old madam was actually about to back down, how could Dong-he be willing to comply? She hurriedly added fuel to the fire and said, "Old madam, even if eldest miss is now Her Highness the Crown Princess, the current great king is also someone who pays attention to filial piety. Could she disrespect her grandmother just because she was the crown prince consort?" This servant heard that when the Empress Dowager was ill, His Highness the Crown Prince had also attended to the Empress Dowager for several days. As the Crown Prince's official wife, the Crown Princess is a role model for the entire world. The word filial piety is enough to firmly suppress her. Dong-he, why are you stirring up trouble here? What intentions did he have? Could it be that you want to see the old madam and the Crown Princess at odds? She had long known that this Dong-he wasn't a good person. Although she was quick-witted, she was too scheming. If Xiaoyun knew that Dong-he was here today to pick a fight with the Crown Princess, Xiaoyun would really regret not blocking her at the door and directly chasing her out. As servants, all they had to do was to be tactful. How could there be so much trouble? This Dong-he was probably reprimanded by the Crown Princess and couldn't hold back her anger, so she ran over to challenge the old madam to stand up for her. However, the old madam was already so old. Recently, she had become more and more powerless. In fact, the right way to go was to enjoy her old age safely. Why would she bother arguing with a junior when she had nothing to do? Sister Xiaoyun, what are you saying? All right, help this old woman over to take a look. Dong-he's words were somewhat reasonable. Even the current crown prince didn't dare to be unfilial. She didn't believe that her granddaughter would dare to be disrespectful to her. When this servant left the antechamber just now, I heard them talking about it. It turns out that the young master who often comes to our residence to visit Madam and Master is His Highness the Crown Prince. He's the Crown Prince. Wang Nei was shocked. Soon after, she couldn't help but sigh. Such a graceful and elegant young man, this old woman felt at first glance that he was either wealthy or respectable. However, I didn't expect that his status would be so high. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.